The shocking truth about living past 100. What if I told you that everything you think you know about living a long life is completely wrong? What if the very system we trust most with our health is actually missing the biggest secret to reaching 100 years old? By the end of this video, you'll discover 18 scientifically proven methods that could completely change how long and how well you live. But first, I need to show you something that will shock you to your core. Today we're diving deep into the real science of living over 100 years. I'm going to share 18 rock-solid, research-backed strategies that you can start using immediately. But more importantly, I've spent months analyzing the countries where people regularly live past 100, and what I found will surprise you. At 60 years old, I'm in better shape now than I was at 25. And I've dedicated years to understanding exactly what works and what doesn't when it comes to longevity. Let me start with a video clip that perfectly shows how most people think about extending life. When humans lived in caves, half of everyone born was dead before age 30. Jump ahead to 1840, and that number only climbed to 35. For thousands of years between cave living and the mid-1800s, people barely lived longer despite eating completely organic food, drinking pure water, and breathing clean air. Then medicine stepped in, and suddenly everything changed. Now here's where it gets interesting. And this is where most people get the story completely wrong. Yes, it's true that in the 1900s, the average person only lived to 32 years old. That sounds terrible, right? As time moved forward, people did start living much longer. But here's the million-dollar question that changes everything. Was it really because of modern medicine like vaccines, antibiotics, and prescription drugs? The answer will blow your mind. The massive jump in life expectancy happened before vaccines became widespread and before antibiotics were even invented. The real heroes weren't doctors or pharmaceutical companies. They were plumbing and sanitation engineers. These unsung heroes cleaned up the sewage systems in cities across America, France, the UK, and other countries. This single change created almost identical spikes in longevity everywhere it was implemented. Here's the part that makes this story even more incredible. Back then, over half of all children died before their 15th birthday. When you remove those tragic early deaths from the life expectancy calculations, you discover that adults who survived childhood were already living much longer than we give them credit for. Most of these children were dying from cholera, typhoid, and dysentery, all diseases that cause severe diarrhea and dehydration. Once proper sanitation eliminated these killers, those diseases virtually disappeared overnight. Don't get me wrong, modern medicine definitely helped extend life further with antibiotics and other treatments. But this raises the most important question of all. If we want to live longer, should we focus on managing diseases, or should we focus on creating genuine health? These are two completely different approaches that lead to totally different outcomes. When you manage disease, you're not fixing the root cause. You're just covering up symptoms while staying dependent on medications for the rest of your life. Think about it. They give you beta blockers to block certain enzymes so your blood pressure drops, but they never fix why your pressure was high in the first place. Got acid reflux, bloating, or indigestion? Here's a pill. Does it ever actually cure anything? Never. It just hides the symptom until you develop side effects and need even more medications. This medical model might extend your life, but it comes at the cost of terrible side effects and a much lower quality of living. Sure, we can technically keep people alive to 100 by putting them on life support, but what kind of life is that? I personally only want to live as long as I can maintain the quality of my health. The thought of ending up in a nursing home with dementia, needing others to feed me, dress me, and change my diapers isn't living at all. That's why today we're focusing on something revolutionary, building health instead of just treating sickness. We're going to talk about increasing your fitness reserve, so your body has an enormous capacity for health. One of the best ways to measure this is through something called VO2 max, which might be the single most accurate predictor of how long you'll live and how well you'll age. Creating real health means optimizing how your body actually functions. It means dramatically improving your quality of life, making your metabolism incredibly flexible, and ensuring your hormones work with peak sensitivity. It means building massive stress tolerance so you can adapt to whatever life throws at you. It means having such a strong parasympathetic nervous system that when you sleep, you drop into deep restorative sleep for 8 solid hours and wake up feeling completely refreshed. Real health also means maintaining your muscle mass as you age, because there's a devastating condition called sarcopenia, where people lose muscle mass and their entire health collapses as a result. Quality sleep, a thriving gut microbiome, and preventing the buildup of dangerous visceral fat around your organs are all crucial pieces of this puzzle. The difference between these two approaches will determine whether you spend your later years vibrant and independent, or sick and dependent on others. Which path will you choose? The Japanese longevity miracle that will change everything you believe. But wait, there's something even more amazing I need to show you. There's one country that has cracked the longevity code so completely that it makes everywhere else look like amateur hour. Japan currently has 95,119 people living over 100 years old. Let me repeat that number because it's absolutely mind-blowing. Nearly 100,000 people have reached their 100th birthday and are still going strong. No other country even comes close to these numbers. Now there is one place where people actually live even longer than Japan, and that's Hong Kong. But Hong Kong is much smaller, so they don't have as many total centenarians. What I discovered about why people in both places live so long will completely flip everything you think you know about healthy living. Some of these findings are so counterintuitive that they'll shock you. So what makes Japan so special that their people routinely celebrate their 100th birthdays while staying healthy and active? The first secret starts in their schools, and it's something that would revolutionize health in America if we had the courage to implement it. Japan has a mandatory food and nutrition education program that's required by law. These kids learn from dietitians who aren't corrupted by the junk food industry like the ones influencing American dietary guidelines. Can you imagine if you had learned how to eat properly as a child? I sure wish I had, because I ate nothing but junk growing up. In America, kids might get 8 hours of nutrition education for the entire year, and even that information comes from dietitians who are heavily influenced by the same junk food companies that profit from keeping us sick. If you doubt this connection between big food companies and dietary guidelines, the evidence is overwhelming and disturbing. But here's where it gets really interesting. What exactly do these Japanese children eat that's so different? They do eat rice, but it's completely different from what we consume in America. While Americans eat highly refined wheat and industrial starches that have been processed beyond recognition, Japanese rice is much less refined and isn't genetically modified, which means it doesn't contain glyphosate. Now, American wheat technically isn't genetically modified either, but they still spray it with glyphosate as an herbicide to dry it out before harvest. This means we're essentially eating weed killer with every bite. In Japan, children learn that fish and meat are healthy, which is refreshing compared to the plant-based propaganda pushed in American schools. They also eat soy, but not the processed soy protein isolates that flood American grocery stores. Instead, they consume fermented soy products, which are completely different nutritionally and provide incredible health benefits. These Japanese kids regularly eat soup, vegetables, and seaweed, which is loaded with iodine. But that seaweed doesn't just provide iodine, it delivers a complete blend of trace minerals that most people never get. The average person in Japan consumes 9 times more iodine than Americans do. Here's why that matters. Iodine is strongly anti-estrogenic, meaning it helps prevent the hormone chaos caused by too much estrogen in our environment. Here's something that will surprise you about Japanese dietary habits. They actually consume more salt than Americans do, but they also eat way more potassium. The problem with table salt isn't the salt itself, it's that we're not getting enough potassium to balance it out. People who are salt sensitive are usually just potassium deficient, When you consume adequate potassium with your sodium, you won't have blood pressure issues or increased stroke risk because your body has something called the sodium-potassium pump that powers every single cell in your body. People in Japan also eat lots of fermented soy, which happens to be one of the best sources of vitamin K2 on the planet. This vitamin not only strengthens your bones and prevents bone loss, protecting against osteoporosis, but it also keeps calcium from building up in your arteries where it can cause heart attacks and strokes. But here's the most mind-blowing discovery about Japanese longevity. The Japanese have a specific microbe in their gut that's actually an ocean microbe. This special bacteria can digest things that American guts simply can't process. When you eat a wide variety of foods, especially fermented foods, you build up diverse microbes that become your personal health army. Some of these bacteria make anti-stress hormones like oxytocin. Others create neurotransmitters that regulate your mood and brain function. Certain microbes specialize in building the protective mucus lining in your colon to prevent leaky gut. Others manufacture vitamins and minerals your body needs. Many serve as defenders, becoming part of your immune system to fight off attacks. This is why eating a diverse range of foods is crucial, but eating diverse fermented foods is absolutely essential for longevity. When you walk through American grocery stores, many vegetables are grown hydroponically in liquid without any soil contact. How can you possibly get the same beneficial microbes from water that you'd get from rich, living soil? You can't. When vegetables grow in soil teeming with microbes, many of those beneficial bacteria travel through the roots into the plant itself, essentially turning that vegetable into a natural probiotic. This fundamental difference in how food is grown and prepared explains why Japanese people develop such incredibly diverse and healthy gut microbiomes compared to Americans. But this is just the beginning of their longevity secrets. What I'm about to share next will completely change how you think about aging and health. The hidden secrets that could add 20+ years to your life. Think about this for a moment. Those beautiful salads and vegetables you buy from the grocery store that were grown hydroponically in sterile water, solutions aren't giving you any of the beneficial bacteria that vegetables from real soil provide. It's like eating food that looks healthy but is missing the most important health-giving component. If you can't access a farmer's market or grow your own garden, you absolutely must eat fermented foods regularly to get these life-extending microbes. I personally love raw sauerkraut, and kimchi is incredible for your health. Fermented pickles, raw fermented cheese, kefir, and yogurt are all fantastic options. There's even something called water kefir that you can grow at home that could be a complete game changer for your health. These fermented foods are non-negotiable if you want to live past 100 with energy and vitality. The Japanese also drink massive amounts of green tea, and the health benefits are absolutely mind-blowing. The plant compounds in green tea are literally at the top of every list of cancer-fighting anti-inflammatory substances that help your liver eliminate toxins. Adding green tea as part of your daily routine could be one of the simplest yet most powerful longevity strategies you'll ever implement. But here's a Japanese principle that most people completely ignore, and it might be the most important one of all. The Japanese eat until they're about 80% full, then they stop. For years I would eat until I was completely stuffed, then keep eating anyway. This single habit was slowly destroying my health, and I had no idea why. Let me show you exactly what happens inside your body when you overeat. Inside every single cell in your body, you have tiny energy factories called mitochondria that process all the food you consume. When food gets broken down, fuel flows into these cellular power plants. But when you force too much fuel into these delicate engines, you create serious damage and problems. It's like trying to pour a gallon of gas into a car that only needs a quart. When you cram low-quality calories into these cellular motors, you're literally depleting them of essential nutrients while damaging the mitochondria and setting yourself up for metabolic disasters down the road. If you're very active and exercise regularly, you can handle more calories because you're burning that fuel efficiently. But if you're not highly active, you need to eat just enough food to fuel your body without overwhelming these delicate energy systems. Remember how I mentioned the Japanese consume more salt, but balance it with potassium. The foods highest in potassium are avocados and leafy greens, which should be staples in your diet if you want to live longer. Here's another fascinating discovery about Japanese longevity. The average person in Japan walks over 6,000 steps every single day, while Americans only average 4,000 steps. That's 2,000 extra steps every day, which might seem small, but over years and decades this difference is absolutely massive. I recommend aiming for 7,000 to 8,000 steps daily because that's where the real health benefits start kicking in. Now you've probably heard about places called blue zones where people live exceptionally long lives. There's been some misleading information spreading that these blue zone populations are all vegetarian and don't eat meat. That's completely false, especially when it comes to Japan and other long-lived populations. The Japanese actually eat more meat than fish nowadays, and they consume plenty of both. But if you want to see something that will completely shock you, let's look at Hong Kong for a moment. Hong Kong residents live even longer than the Japanese on average, and they consume more meat than anywhere else on Earth. The average person in Hong Kong eats 323.9 pounds of meat every single year. That's almost a pound of meat every single day. And what type of meat are they eating? Massive amounts of pork and beef. The exact two foods that health experts have been telling you to avoid for decades. This perfectly illustrates a principle I've followed for years. Find out what everyone agrees on and what everyone's telling you to do, then seriously consider going in the opposite direction. Clearly, eating lots of meat isn't killing the people of Hong Kong. Now, Hong Kong residents also have very low smoking rates, consume lots of seafood, and do tremendous amounts of walking, which all contribute to their longevity. But the meat consumption data completely destroys the conventional wisdom about what constitutes a healthy diet. Now that you understand the real secrets from the longest living populations on Earth, let's dive into the 18 scientifically proven strategies you can start using immediately to extend your own life. These aren't theories or guesses netters, these are research-backed methods that can add years, maybe decades, to your healthy lifespan. The 18 life extension secrets that actually work. Number 1 is addressing insulin resistance, and this might be the most important factor of all. Insulin resistance is the hidden root cause behind virtually every major chronic disease. Fatty liver, type 2 diabetes, obesity, heart disease, and even many cancers. Anything you can do to reduce insulin resistance will dramatically improve your chances of living a long, healthy life. But here's what's absolutely criminal about our medical system. They're testing for the wrong thing. You could check your blood sugar and have completely normal readings for 15 to 20 years while insulin resistance slowly destroys your body. That's because insulin is working overtime, frantically sucking sugar out of your bloodstream to keep those numbers looking normal. Do doctors ever check your insulin levels? Almost never. They're completely focused on blood sugar, so they miss the real problem until it's too late. There's another test called A1C that measures your average blood sugar over 3 months by looking at how much sugar is attached to your red blood cells. But even your A1C can stay normal for 10 to 15 years during the early stages of insulin resistance while damage accumulates throughout your body. The test you actually need is fasting insulin, and it's a much better indicator of what's really happening inside your body. Unfortunately, most doctors don't order this test, and there isn't even agreement on what normal insulin levels should be, which I find absolutely fascinating and suspicious. I recommend keeping your fasting insulin under 7 or ideally under 5. Mine sits at 2, which is where I want it to stay. How do you keep insulin low and reverse insulin resistance? It's actually simpler than most people think. Go low carb and eliminate sugar along with hidden starches. This means avoiding obvious sugar but also being aware of hidden sugars that are lurking in foods you'd never suspect. Industrial starches are basically hidden sugar in disguise. I'm talking about refined breads, pasta, cereal, crackers, biscuits, waffles, and pancakes. Your body treats all of these processed starches exactly like sugar, causing massive insulin spikes. When insulin stays chronically high, it eventually stops working properly. The cells can't get the fuel they need, and everything starts falling apart. This is where most chronic diseases begin. Number 2 is autophagy, and this might be the most powerful anti-aging mechanism your body possesses. Autophagy is literally your body's internal cleanup crew that fixes damaged proteins and cellular parts. Think of it as having a team of microscopic janitors working 24/7 to repair and renew your cells. What kills people isn't old age. It's accumulated cellular damage and broken mitochondria. If you had a way to keep those cells cleaned up and renewed, you could live dramatically longer. The secret to activating this cellular cleanup system is regular intermittent fasting and periodic prolonged fasting. I've created countless videos explaining exactly how to do this safely and effectively. You should aim for at least 48 to 72-hour fasts periodically. I recently completed a 5-day fast, and the cellular renewal benefits are incredible. This alone could be one of the most powerful longevity strategies you'll ever implement. Number 3 is VO2 max testing, which you can get done at specialized clinics. This is the ultimate measurement of your fitness reserve and one of the most accurate predictors of how long you'll live. VO2 max measures your body's ability to use oxygen efficiently. All that cardiovascular training builds up your oxygen utilization capacity, and oxygen is what keeps your body from becoming chronically inflamed. When you have high fitness reserves, you create an extra buffer zone that protects you from health crises. Better oxygen utilization improves your sleep quality, keeps your stress hormone cortisol low, and gives your body the metabolic flexibility to handle whatever life throws at it. Keeping your VO2 max high should be a top priority if you want to live past 100. Number 4 focuses on mitochondria, and problems with these cellular powerhouses are behind most age-related health decline. You need to understand that mitochondria are like tiny factories inside every cell, and just like any factory, they need quality raw materials to function properly. First, you need quality fuel coming into the mitochondria. Then, complex biochemical reactions extract energy from that fuel and convert it into ATP, which powers every function in your body. Every single one of these biochemical reactions requires specific vitamins, minerals, and trace elements to work correctly. This is exactly why proper nutrition is so crucial for longevity. Your mitochondria absolutely require B vitamins like B1, B2, B3, and B5, plus coenzyme Q10 and trace minerals including manganese, zinc, iodine, copper, and magnesium. If you're deficient in any of these essential nutrients, your cellular energy factories simply can't function optimally. Feed your mitochondria junk food, and they'll produce junk energy. It's that simple. But here's something that will shock most people. Seed oils are absolute poison for your mitochondria. Soy oil, corn oil, and canola oil seriously damage mitochondrial function. These industrial oils weren't part of the human diet until very recently, and our cellular machinery hasn't adapted to process them safely. There's actually an advanced test called a metabolomic test that examines your cellular biochemistry in incredible detail. It shows exactly where the bottlenecks are in your mitochondrial energy production. Is the problem inadequate fuel, missing nutrients? The test reveals exactly what's wrong so you can fix it. Out of everything that shows up as deficient in metabolomic testing, the most common problem is inadequate high-quality amino acids from animal protein. People need to consume more animal meat to allow their cellular biochemistry to work correctly. This perfectly explains why the carnivore diet produces such dramatic health improvements, and why people feel so much better when they increase their animal protein intake. I've already explained how crucial fasting is for longevity, because it forces your body to adapt and become stronger. It's almost impossible to reach peak health unless you stress your body intermittently, but you must allow proper recovery time as well. Since we're discussing beneficial stress, let's talk about heat therapy. Adding heat through hot showers, saunas or jacuzzis provides benefits remarkably similar to exercise. Think about that for a moment. You can get many of the same longevity benefits as intense exercise just by relaxing in a jacuzzi. Your body has to work hard to regulate its temperature, activating beneficial stress response pathways throughout your system. Cold therapy works through the same principle but in reverse. When you expose yourself to cold water or cold showers, your body has to maintain its core temperature by turning on survival genes and metabolic pathways. I'm not talking about dangerous cold exposure, just brief immersion followed by warming up. Alternating between hot and cold therapy can be incredibly beneficial, but make sure your heart is strong enough to handle these temperature changes. Even plant compounds called phytonutrients create beneficial stress that forces your body to adapt and become stronger. This is why certain plant foods can be so health-promoting despite containing natural toxins. They trigger protective responses that ultimately make you more resilient. I've mentioned exercise, but let me introduce you to something cutting-edge: hypoxia training. This is essentially high-altitude training where you exercise with restricted oxygen. This forces your body to develop new capillaries and produce larger, more efficient red blood cells. You can buy masks that restrict airflow during workouts. I'm currently experimenting with this myself, and I think it's going to be the next big breakthrough in fitness and longevity. We've covered intermittent fasting, but what about sun exposure? Getting moderate UV radiation creates beneficial stress that triggers protective adaptations in your skin and throughout your body. Your cells literally become more resilient when exposed to appropriate amounts of sunlight. Fermented foods also work through beneficial stress by exposing you to diverse microbes. Your immune system adapts by developing more sophisticated responses and maintaining healthier microbial diversity. If you raise children in completely sterile environments, their immune systems never properly develop. Our immune systems actually get stronger through controlled exposure to microbes and environmental challenges. This brings us to longevity strategy number 9, vitamin D optimization. Our genes evolved over millions of years expecting massive amounts of sunlight. But now we spend most of our lives trapped indoors under artificial lighting. We desperately need more sun exposure and higher vitamin D levels if we want to live past 100. If you want to truly bulletproof yourself against disease and extend your lifespan, you need a vitamin D blood level of at least 60 nanograms per milliliter, and ideally closer to 80. Most doctors will tell you that 30 is sufficient, but that's barely enough to prevent rickets, not optimize longevity. Personally, I maintain my vitamin D over 100 because I have old injuries and arthritis, and my body performs dramatically better at these higher levels. Of course, I monitor my blood calcium and other factors to ensure safety, but keeping your levels between 60 and 80 will put you in excellent shape for longevity. Number 10 might surprise you. Social connections are absolutely crucial for living past 100. You need to be actively involved in multiple groups and communities. When people become isolated and experience chronic loneliness, their health deteriorates rapidly. You can be alone without being lonely, but that crushing feeling of loneliness is devastating for longevity. This is why when someone loses a loved one, they develop what's called broken heart syndrome. The stress is so overwhelming that their chance of having a heart attack increases by roughly 2,000% in the first week after the loss. It's absolutely devastating to the body. Unfortunately, everyone has to face these losses eventually, which is why you need tremendous fitness reserves to survive these psychological and physical traumas. This connects back to that crucial concept of hormesis, putting short bursts of beneficial stress on your body to make it adapt and become stronger. Exercise is the perfect example. It breaks your body down temporarily, but then you recover even stronger than before. Number 11 takes us back to that Japanese principle: never stuff yourself with food. Try to stop eating when you're about 80% full, then just stop. This allows the fuel coming into your cellular machinery to be properly utilized with all the necessary cofactors and nutrients. Everything works like a well-oiled machine instead of being overwhelmed and damaged by excess. Number 12 is something I call free metformin, taking a post-meal walk. Metformin is a diabetes medication that helps lower blood sugar, but a simple walk after eating provides the same benefit without any side effects. Your muscles act like glucose sponges, soaking up excess sugar from your bloodstream and preventing those dangerous insulin spikes. We've already discussed fermented foods extensively, but here's a bonus tip. A little dark chocolate without added sugar is incredibly healthy for your gut microbes. I consume some every day at lunchtime, and sometimes I add it to my morning coffee. The beneficial compounds in dark chocolate feed your good bacteria and support optimal gut health. Number 15 could be the most important strategy of all: optimizing your sleep. If you're not sleeping properly, you simply won't live a long time. For years I thought getting up at 4 a.m. made me more productive, but I always needed afternoon naps, and it eventually caught up with me. Now I absolutely must get at least 7 to 7.5 hours, and I'm trying to consistently get 8 hours of high-quality sleep. Let me share the sleep optimization protocol that changed my life. Take magnesium glycinate about an hour before bed. This form of magnesium helps your muscles relax and allows your stress hormone cortisol to drop naturally. Interestingly, it also slightly reduces your core body temperature, which is exactly what your body needs for deep sleep. Right before sleep, your core temperature naturally drops from the normal 98.6 degrees to about 1 or 2 degrees cooler. This temperature reduction helps you fall asleep faster and improves your delta wave sleep, which is when the most important cellular repair and brain detoxification processes occur. Temperature control is absolutely critical for quality sleep. Set your bedroom temperature between 62 and 68 degrees. I personally sleep with just a thin sheet and keep my room very cold. I sleep dramatically better than when I use heavy blankets. If your feet get cold, wear socks, but keep your core body temperature slightly cool for optimal sleep quality. Light exposure is equally important for sleep optimization. We haven't evolved to handle our current environment filled with artificial lighting. Most people wake up and immediately stare at computer screens filled with blue light, which completely disrupts our natural circadian rhythms. Here's how to reset your circadian clock every morning. Go outside for 20 minutes and allow natural sunlight to enter your eyes. Don't stare directly at the sun, but let that natural light hit your retinas. You're getting blue light at the exact frequency of 480 nanometers that your brain needs to wake up properly and set your internal clock. At night, when it gets dark, wear blue light blocking glasses if you're using computers or watching TV. This restricts the blue light that tells your brain to stay awake, allowing natural sleep hormones to kick in. Be very careful with stimulants throughout the day. Too much coffee or chocolate contains compounds that block adenosine receptors in your brain. Adenosine builds up during the day and creates sleep pressure that helps you fall into deep sleep at night. If you consume too much caffeine like I used to, those receptors stop working properly. You can't fall asleep at night because there's no sleep pressure, and then it's hard to wake up in the morning, even with more caffeine, because the receptors are damaged. Out of all these longevity strategies, fixing your sleep might be the most impactful thing you can do to extend your lifespan. Number 16 focuses on the FOXO3 gene, which is the longevity gene that people in Japan and other long-lived populations have expressed at higher levels than most people. While there is a genetic component to longevity, the amazing news is that you can activate and express this gene through specific lifestyle choices. You can enhance FOXO3 expression through intermittent fasting, endurance exercise, high-intensity interval training, resistance training, sauna use, and cold exposure. Certain plant compounds also activate this gene. The polyphenols in green tea, curcumin from turmeric, and sulforaphane from broccoli sprouts. NAD supplements can help, but I recommend just taking complete B vitamins since you need B3 specifically to build NAD naturally. You get plenty of B3 from red meat, liver and organ meats. Having less visceral fat around your organs, running your body on ketones through low-carb eating, and getting adequate sleep all enhance this longevity gene. Basically, if you follow all the strategies I've outlined, you'll naturally optimize your genetic expression for maximum lifespan. Number 17 is maintaining muscle mass as you age. As people get older, they develop a devastating condition called sarcopenia, where they lose muscle mass year after year. It's absolutely crucial to maintain resistance training and consume adequate animal protein as you age to preserve your muscle mass. But here's the problem: if your testosterone levels drop, it becomes extremely difficult to build or maintain muscle regardless of how much you exercise or how much protein you eat. Testosterone is the master hormone that can convert into other hormones as needed, making it absolutely essential for longevity. If women are considering estrogen replacement therapy, they should probably consider testosterone therapy instead, since testosterone can convert to estrogen naturally as the body needs it. Maintaining muscle mass requires consistent resistance training, sufficient high-quality protein with all the necessary cofactors, and optimal hormone levels. Those cofactors are abundantly found in red meat and muscle protein when you eat animal foods. Magnesium also plays a crucial role in muscle maintenance and testosterone production. To naturally boost testosterone, focus on intense exercise, adequate zinc intake. Oysters are the absolute best food source, followed by red meat, sufficient sleep, and adequate cholesterol intake. For those watching who are probably a bit older and more concerned about maintaining optimal testosterone levels, I've created an entire detailed video specifically addressing natural testosterone optimization strategies that could add years to your healthy lifespan.